Good evening, everyone. Yes, if you see this, you'll get an idea of what we're talking about tonight. So, tonight we are going to talk about the Lincoln assassination, the bullet that ended the Civil War and started a whole new nightmare. On April 14th, 1865, Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., the war is over, or so everyone thinks. Robert E. Lee surrendered just 5 days earlier. The Union has won. But in the presidential box, a handsome 26-year-old actor slips through the door, raises a 44 caliber Derringer, and fires point blank into the back of Abraham Lincoln's head. The president slumps forward, blood pours. The assassin leaps to the stage, breaks his leg, screams, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants, which is what it means, and vanishes into the night. Now, this wasn't random. This was the climax of conspiracy bigger than one bullet. A plot hatched in the shadows of a dying Confederacy to decapitate the entire U.S. government. Kill Lincoln, Vice President Johnson, Secretary of State Seward, and throw the nation into chaos, maybe restart the war. Tonight on Red True Crime, we go full deep dive. Exactly what drove John Wilkes Booth from kidnapping to cold blooded murder. Every single conspirator, their twisted backgrounds, their roles, and who chickened out and who swung. The 7-week military trial that still sparks outrage today. The 4 bodies dangling from the gallows, including the first woman ever executed by the federal government. And the chilling historical aftermath. How Lincoln's death poisoned Reconstruction, empowered a racist new president, and left America mourning on a funeral train that stopped the country in its tracks. If you crave true crime that changed history forever, smash subscribe, ring that bell, and lock in. This is the assassination that still haunts America. Red True Crime starts now. Hello there again. So, John Wilkes Booth wasn't some lone gunman. Um, he was a superstar, one of America's most famous actors from a legendary theatrical family. Brother Edwin was the biggest star on the stage. But John, fierce Southern sympathizer, hated Lincoln with every fiber, called him a tyrant destroying the South. Summer 1864, Booth meets Confederate spies in Montreal. He cooks up a kidnapping plot. Grab Lincoln, drag him to Richmond, trade him for thousands of Confederate POWs rotting in Union camps. And then boom, leverage to end the war on Southern terms. They recruit a crew. Yeah, say that many times. They practice, and on March 17th, 1865, they wait on a road outside Washington for Lincoln's carriage to a hospital matinee. But Lincoln changes plans at the last second. Plot fails, some guys bail. And then everything collapses for the South. April 9th, Lee surrenders at Appomattox. Richmond falls. The Confederacy is dead. Booth, enraged, writes in his diary he's now playing Brutus. No more kidnapping. Now it's a full-on assassination. April 14th, Good Friday. Booth learns Lincoln and his wife will be at Ford's Theater that night watching Our American Cousin. He scribbles a note to the newspapers claiming he's avenging the South. He assigns hits. Himself on Lincoln, Lewis Powell, um, sorry, Lewis Powell and Seward, George Azardot on Johnson, and one bullet each. and the government crumbles. This wasn't rage alone. Booth believed decapitating the Union would let the South rise again. History's most desperate Hail Mary. So there were 9 core players in the web, Booth at the center. So we have Mary Surratt, 42-year-old widow, ran a Washington boarding house where the crew met. Confederate sympathizer, delivered guns and messages. Her son John was a spy. She's the only woman. Back to Lewis Powell, also known as Lewis Payne. He was 21, towering ex-Confederate soldier, knife expert, assigned to murder Secretary Seward in his bed. Almost succeeded. Stabbed Seward and his sons, but they all survive. Okay, then we have David Harold, 23 years old, pharmacy clerk, outdoorsman, guided Powell to Seward's house, then fled with Booth through Maryland swamps for 12 days. Let's see. George Etzerat, 29, German-born carriage maker, drunk, assigned to kill Vice President Johnson at his hotel. Loses nerve, gets drunk instead, wanders around. Which, looking at that, that makes sense. Then we have Dr. Samuel Mudd, Maryland farmer doctor. He's the one who set Booth's broken leg the morning after. Knew Booth before, gave him crutches and a ride. Let's see here. Bear with me just one second. Let's see. Samuel Arnold, childhood friend of Booth from Baltimore, deep in the original kidnapping plot. Wrote a letter in March begging Booth to stop. Wasn't in D.C. on Assassination night. So let's see who else we can add into this. Okay, so now we have Michael O'Laughlin, another childhood friend, kidnapping crew. Stalked Grant the night before, but backed off. And then we have Edmund Spangler. He was a theater stagehand at Ford, so he's the one who helped them get them backstage. Helped Booth escape through the back door, held his horse, minor role, but caught in the act. And then we have the final conspirator, John Surratt. I can pull him up. Give me one second here. John Surratt, the son of Mary Surratt, whose mother was executed in his stead. So there he is. Okay. So John Surratt was a Confederate courier spy, helped plan early kidnapping out of the country on assassination night, supposedly. Later captured, tried in civilian court, and then was acquitted. So taking all of these people into account, these were not master criminals. They were actors, doctors, drunks, and kids, bound by loyalty to the dying South and Booth's magnetic madness. I mean, you could almost look at John Wilkes Booth as a more of like a cult leader to a degree. So at 10:15 on April 14th at Ford's Theater, Booth waits for the biggest laugh line in the play. Don't know the manners of good society. So the shot blends with the applause. He steps into the box. Major Henry Rathbone tries to stop him. But Booth, being who he is, stabs him, fires into Lincoln's skull, and hits him behind the left ear. Lincoln slumps, Mary screams. Booth leaps 12 feet to the stage, catches his spur on the flag, breaks his leg, shouts the line, limps out the back door where Spangler held his horse, and gallops into the night. Simultaneously, Powell attacks Seward's house with a knife. Chaos, blood everywhere, but Seward survives. And then Atterdaut chickens out at the hotel. Lincoln is carried across the street to the boarding house. Doctors can't save him. He dies at 7:22 a.m. on April 15th. On April 15th, Stanton says now he belongs to the ages. Andrew Johnson sworn in hours later, and the nation wakes up to complete horror. This now starts the 12 Days of Hell. It is known as the largest manhunt in U.S. history. $100,000 reward. Booth and Harold hide with sympathizers, including Dr. Mudd. Cross Potomac into Virginia, and April 26, they are cornered in a tobacco farm on the Garrett Farm. Soldiers set it on fire, and Booth refuses to surrender. Yeah, pretty good stuff there. So, anyway, soldiers set it on fire. Booth refuses to surrender, and Sergeant Boston Corbett shoots him through the neck. Booth dies paralyzed on the porch, whispering, "Useless, useless." His body is ID'd, secretly buried. The rest of the crew? Well, they were rounded up pretty fast. Mary Surratt arrested at her boarding house. Powell was caught hiding there, and all 8 dragged to the old Arsenal Penitentiary. So let's talk more about the military commission, because they were not tried in civil court or, citizen court, I should say. So on May 1st, 1865, President Johnson orders a military tribunal. 9 Union officers as judges, no civilian court. No unanimous verdict needed, just 5 of the 9 for guilty, and hearsay was allowed. Defense screams unconstitutional, which it is at that time. 7 weeks, 347 witnesses, evidence, Booth's diary, weapons, witness, IDs, Mary's boarding house meetings. These are all the things they're using. All 8 convicted of conspiracy and murder. So the sentences: death by hanging, which happened on July 7th, 1865. You have Mary Surratt. She was 1. Lewis Powell. David Harold. And George Atzerodt. Sorry, I cannot say his name correctly. Mary protests to the end her innocence, protests all the way. Some historians still debate if she was just a landlady or an active plotter. But she's also goes down in history as the first woman executed by U.S. government. They hang together at the arsenal. Crowds watch. Bodies are cut down, buried nearby. Now, life imprisonment went to Dr. Samuel Mudd, Samuel Arnold, which I took his picture away, and Michael O'Laughlin. But Michael O'Laughlin ended up dying in prison in 1867. And then Edmund Spangler got 6 years. John Surratt flees to Europe, gets caught in 1866, gets a civilian trial in 1867, gets a hung jury, and walks away free. The trial is still debated today. You tell me, do you think it was fair, or do you think it was wartime revenge? Do you think any of these people stood a chance at a fair trial? So, Lincoln's body lays in state. Let me remove this one. Pardon me, sorry, remove. There it is. I'm still trying to get all this stuff straight. Okay, there we go. Lincoln's body lays in state at the White House, then Capitol. A 1,600-mile funeral train crawls to Springfield, Illinois. Millions line the tracks in 180 cities. Black crepe everywhere. Easter becomes a funeral. Politically, catastrophic. Absolutely catastrophic. Lincoln wanted gentle reconstruction. Forgive the South, heal, but Andrew Johnson, a known racist, Southern Democrat, takes over. And his lenient plan clashes with the radical Republicans. Black codes return. Johnson gets impeached in 1868, but he's acquitted by one vote. And Reconstruction turns harsh, then abandoned, leading to Jim Crow decades later. And we all know what Jim Crow did. So Lincoln becomes instant martyr. His death cements the emancipation legacy. Ford's theater closes for years, and Booth's family is disgraced. And the theories, they explode immediately. Did Jefferson Davis order it? Was there a bigger Confederate plot? Did Stanton know? Still argued today, but evidence points to Booth's small crew acting on Southern rage. So, the bullet that killed Lincoln didn't just end one man, it changed the country's path for generations. A conspiracy born of desperation, a trial that bent the rules, an aftermath that left scars we still feel. 4 conspirators danced at the end of ropes, others rotted in prison. Booth got a bullet, but America, it got a legend and a warning about what hate and loss causes can do. So, what do you think? Was Mary Surratt guilty or railroaded? Should it have been a civilian trial? Drop your theories below. And if you want more presidential true crime, Garfield, McKinley, or the full Reconstruction nightmare, smash like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. So stay obsessed with the dark side of history. This has been Red True Crime. The ages still belong to Lincoln. Good night, everyone.